1991, the United States launched one of the most precise air campaigns in history. Coalition forces dropped over 500 tons of bombs across Iraq in just 43 days. They destroyed bridges, command centers, and power grids with surgical accuracy. And yet, Saddam Hussein's military did not collapse immediately. Instead, Iraq retaliated by launching Scud missiles into Saudi Arabia and Israel, targeting civilian infrastructure hundreds of miles away. The lesson was clear even then. When a military force feels cornered, it does not always strike at what hit it. It strikes back at what hurts the most. That same lesson is playing out again today, this time in the Persian Gulf. On the surface, a strike on a water treatment facility sounds like a tactical move. Limited contained, a pressure point. But in the Middle East, where oil pipelines, desalination plants, and liquefied natural gas terminals sit within a few hundred miles of each other, one strike rarely stays contained for long. The question analysts are now asking is not whether Iran would retaliate. The question is what exactly Iran would target, and whether the Gulf's critical infrastructure could survive it. To understand the stakes, you need to understand the geography. The Persian Gulf is one of the most infrastructure-dense regions on the planet. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain collectively produce over 20 million barrels of oil per day. That accounts for roughly 20% of the world's total oil supply. Running through this region is a web of pipelines, terminals, and processing facilities, many of which have no redundant backup. The Abqaiq oil processing facility in Saudi Arabia alone handles over 7% of the entire world's daily crude oil supply. One serious strike on Abqaiq, as the world saw in September 2019, can temporarily cut Saudi production in half overnight. And Iran knows this better than anyone. Tehran has spent over 2 decades mapping Gulf infrastructure with extraordinary precision. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, known as the IRGC, operates a network of drones, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and proxy militia forces spread across Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. This is not speculation, this is documented. In 2019, Iranian linked forces fired 18 drones and 7 cruise missiles at Abqaiq and the Kurayz oil field. The attack bypassed U.S.-supplied Patriot missile defense batteries entirely. The damage took weeks to repair and briefly sent global oil prices surging by 15% in a single day, the largest single-day spike in nearly 30 years. Now imagine that scenario not as a one-off attack, but as a coordinated campaign. Iran's ballistic missile arsenal currently numbers over 3,000 missiles by most Western intelligence estimates. Many of these are capable of striking targets across the entire Gulf region. The Shahab 3, for example, has a confirmed range of 300 kilometers. The Khorramshahr 4, unveiled in 2023, reportedly carries a warhead of 500 kilograms and has a range exceeding 2,000 kilometers. These are not primitive weapons. These are precision instruments designed specifically to overwhelm layered missile defense systems through saturation, firing enough projectiles simultaneously that no single defense battery can intercept them all. But missiles are only part of the equation. Iran also controls the Strait of Hormuz, or more precisely, it sits directly alongside it. The Strait of Hormuz is 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. Every single day, approximately 17 million barrels of oil pass through that choke point. That is roughly 17% of all oil traded globally. Iran does not need to sink every ship. It does not even need to fire a single missile into the water. History shows that merely threatening the strait is enough to spike insurance premiums, reroute tankers, and rattle energy markets worldwide. In 2019, a series of tanker seizures and mining incidents attributed to Iran caused Lloyd's of London war risk insurance rates for Gulf shipping to jump by over 400% within weeks. So here is the real scenario worth examining. The United States strikes an Iranian water treatment facility, framed as a pressure tactic, a proportional response, or a demonstration of resolve. Iran's leadership, facing domestic pressure and international humiliation, cannot absorb the strike politically without a visible response, and so Tehran activates what military strategists call its Symmetric playbook. Houthi forces in Yemen, already armed with Iranian-supplied drones and anti-ship missiles, intensify attacks on Red Sea shipping lanes. Iranian proxy militias in Iraq target U.S. bases and Gulf state pipelines simultaneously. IRGC fast boats swarm and harass tanker traffic near the Strait of Hormuz. A volley of cruise missiles, potentially launched from multiple directions to defeat radar tracking, strikes a Gulf LNG terminal or a desalination facility. Not all of them need to succeed. Even partial success creates panic. And here is where the numbers become genuinely alarming. The UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar collectively rely on desalination for over 90% of their fresh water supply. Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial complex, the world's largest LNG export hub, processes over 77 million tons of liquefied natural gas per year. A sustained disruption to Ras Laffan alone would affect gas supplies to Europe, Asia, and beyond. Germany, South Korea, Japan, and the United Kingdom are all significant importers of Qatari LNG. This is no longer a regional conflict. The moment Gulf infrastructure is seriously damaged, the economic shockwaves travel at the speed of commodity markets. Which is to say, instantly. The United States is not unaware of this calculus. CENTCOM, the U.S. military's central command, maintains over 40 Zhaozan troops across the Gulf region. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group was deployed to the region as recently as 2024 in direct response to escalating Iranian proxy activity. The U.S. has also stationed terminal high-altitude area defense systems, known as THAAD, and multiple Patriot PAX-3 batteries across Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. These are formidable systems. A single THI battery costs approximately $800 million. A single Patriot PAX-3 interceptor missile costs around $4 million per shot. But here is the fundamental problem that no missile defense system has yet solved. Iran's strategy is not to win a head-to-head military engagement. Iran's strategy is to make any military engagement too expensive, too unpredictable, and too destabilizing to sustain. When a 200 Houthi drone forces a $4 million interceptor missile to be fired in response, Iran wins that exchange economically. When a single water plant strike triggers a chain of events that disrupts 17% of global oil supply, Iran wins that exchange strategically. So what does this mean for the Gulf, for the United States, and for the global economy? It means that the era of clean, contained strikes in the Middle East, if it ever truly existed, is functionally over. Every military action in this region now carries systemic risk. Infrastructure is no longer just a military target. It is a geopolitical weapon wielded by all sides. The United States must weigh not just the tactical outcome of any strike, but its cascading second and third order effects on energy markets, water security, and allied stability across 3 continents. The Gulf states themselves, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, are accelerating infrastructure hardening programs, underground fuel storage expansion, and redundant desalination capacity for exactly this reason. Saudi Aramco has invested over $1 billion in facility hardening since the 2019 Abqaiq attack. Qatar has diversified its LNG export routes and increased its strategic reserve capacity. These are not the moves of nations that believe the threat is theoretical. The hard reality is this: one strike, on a water plant, a refinery, or a pipeline, does not happen in isolation in today's Gulf. It happens inside a system so tightly interconnected, so globally dependent, and so militarily contested that the line between a targeted operation and a regional catastrophe has never been thinner. The question is not whether the United States has the capability to strike. Clearly, it does. The question is whether anyone, in Washington, in Tehran, or anywhere in between, has fully calculated the cost of what comes next.